Fine. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to CxO Global Forum's webinar for the month of April. We had a little bit of a break due to Ramzan and the Eid holidays, but we're back with a very interesting topic today, which is transforming Pakistan's financial landscape, fintech innovations. A very relevant topic, a very pertinent topic, I must add. And before we deep dive into today's topic, I'd just like to quickly introduce a very esteemed panel for today's discussion. We'll start with Alia first. Alia, if you could just briefly introduce yourself.
मेरी ब्रीफ हो नहीं सकती ना 29 साल का मेरा तजुर्बा है but just in a minute I started with civil services of Pakistan. I worked in Pakistan, outside Pakistan, as a national and international civil servant. I am an expert on transformations, governance, and HR. I also have worked extensively in the power sector, with the government, even otherwise, with the privatization. So multiple things that I've done. And I'm also an art historian, written a book, writing my second one. I'm a public speaker as well. It's a long list, so I should stop here. Thank you.
Sahar, I think.
Frozen, I think.
Yeah, screen's frozen. Yeah. So, yeah.
Gee, thank you. If I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my connection. Mushtaq, if we could move to you, please.
Yes.
If we could.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mushtaq Rehman. I'm a change and transformation consultant. I'm also a chartered accountant. That's how I started my journey. For the last several years, I've been working on major digital and business transformation programs, system implementations. So I'm currently working on a SAP Farhan implementation and business transformation program. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Farhan.
Okay. My name is Farhan Arif. I'm basically technology expert. I've done my computer engineering, then MBA and MIS. Overall, it's more than 18 years of experience in a different company. Especially, I spent a lot of time in one of the media agency and implement so many applications and integrate and as expert, I am been working right now in Maddox Laboratories, Pakistan Limited. Is a herbal producer. So I'm just trying to transform and digitalize the business processes here.
Thank you. A very warm welcome to all of you. And what is interesting is that two of our three speakers today are based in London. So we'll have a very interesting and diverse discussion. And let me just sort of start with my first question, which is, what are the key challenges facing Pakistan's traditional financial sector? And how can fintech innovations address these challenges? So the floor is open because we have a small panel. Anyone who would like to address this question first?
Yeah, I think if I can start, if that's okay. I mean, obviously, I'm based in London, but from what I know in Pakistan, you have limitations in terms of connectivity as well as financial literacy. And I know that on the consumer side, you have various apps like Easy Paisa, Jazz Cash, but the connection between the consumer and the retailer is not there, or not there to that extent, like what you see in India or in China, like in UPI in India, for example. So I think it's a long way to go. And it's also a challenge in terms of mindsets as well, because what also gets in the way is that undocumented economy. People are afraid to, as soon as you start using these apps or you go online, now it becomes into documented or visible economy. So I think that's the challenge as well. So, yeah.
So can I add to this?
Yes, please. Yes.
Thank you. So, when you look at the landscape and you look at the challenges, I think one of the very critical ones is that of financial inclusion. So, in terms of financial inclusion, I think we have a huge population which remains unbanked. The areas which are unbanked, banks traditionally do not touch certain types of populations. And because of that, fintech solutions can help by bridging that gap. And we've already had this, it started with Easy Pesa, and Easy Pesa was, I think, back in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. So the first leap was taken at that time, and after that, there have been a lot of new players in the market. But the second component of it, I think, which is extremely important also, is on the area of digital payments and remittances, because remittances remains one of the key areas. And I'm talking from London, so that's why I think it's a little bit closer to heart as well. So digital payments and remittances is where we have a huge, large diaspora, and these component also plays a very critical role in the economy of Pakistan, and how these platforms can help streamline these cross-border remittances, specifically making it cheaper, which needs to be one of the areas that we need to look at. The third element, I think, is looking at mobile apps, for example, digital wallets, access to international connectivity through apps such as PayPal. We don't have access. So from a commercial perspective, we are where below where we need to be. Another aspect that I think is extremely important is what I think Mushtaq slightly referred to as well. Connectivity. The connectivity issue essentially is also a political issue. So if you close your internet every few days, you are really looking at a loss of millions, if not billions, but also a loss of opportunity, loss of the potential, possibilities of engagements, collaborations. You're really creating huge challenges. Then access to credit and lending is not really there either. So when you look at, the opportunities for fintech, I think there is so much to do. If you look at access to credit and lending, traditional banks have very, very clear, very stringent requirements. And I think there is a fintech opportunity there in terms of leveraging alternative options there as well. So I can go on and on, actually. So you have to stop. So there's blockchain, there are banks, there's digital banking. Everywhere you have a lot of space.
I think that was an excellent roundup of where we stand, what the challenges are, and what we can do to fill these gaps. I'll just, before sort of I take Farhan's comments on these, on the issues you've mentioned, I personally feel that the sort of lockdown gave us a little bit of motivation, or not even motivation. We were forced to use digital banking a little more than we traditionally did. So I think one of the, I don't know, highlights or positive impacts of the lockdown was because we are a traditional society. We like being comfortable in our habits of the past. But I feel that sort of I see digital banking amongst other fintech innovations being used a little more, slightly more over the last couple of years. I do agree with Alia that there is a huge gap which we need to fill, but I feel there is COVID give us that push into using these fintech innovations, and of course, there's a wide horizon. But I feel that we've had a little bit of a start. So Faraz has also joined us. Farhan, would you like to add anything before we sort of move to Faraz?
Yes, absolutely. Assalamualaikum, Faraz. Okay, let me just give you okay. There's you have already Alia and Mushtaq have already been discussed so many things. So let me just give you a brief idea that what are the challenges between the local bank operations and the fintech solutions. So there are so many issues before the COVID and after the COVID, that we have some limited access, internet issues, slow processes, bureaucratic approaches, security issues. These are the challenges that we mean face before start using these online banking, fintech solutions and online banking. So thanks to the fintech solution, that they have already educated people that who are not being engaged themselves into just open the account, and it's not being limited to the ages, and they can just easily doing the business. So it's helped us to just start working on the like mobile banking is on, like it's a low cost solution. Everyone can easily use these things. It's a fast transaction. The security is very much real concern in Pakistan. So fintech, by using a mobile wallet and mobile banking transaction, they can easily use their mobiles, and they can easily transfer the money from one person to another person. The challenge that we have, we still have some issues on the infrastructure side. We still have some issues on the compliance and regulatory side. But there is a start in Pakistan. It's a slow process, and two major key stakeholders like EasyPaisa and JustCash has already been contributed in this area. The rest of the key holders, key players, has not been involved very much, and we are still trying to just involve them. But still, we have some issues. But it's a positive sign that we can move in the right direction. So hopefully, we'll have in next 2 3 years, then we can just move most of the part of the transaction on fintech solutions.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Mushtaq, would you like to add anything, or shall I raise my next question?
No, okay, thank you.
Okay. So I think Faraz perhaps is having a little difficulty connecting. My next question is, how are fintech startups in Pakistan leveraging technology to increase financial inclusion among marginal? I mean, it's a general question. How are fintech startups in Pakistan leveraging technology to increase financial inclusion? Alia, this is something you mentioned. Would you like to address this?
Yes, for sure. So this is a very sort of broad question, I would say, because you need to look at the whole macro level fintech companies in Pakistan. I think there are multiple elements again where technology is an enabler and it is already being utilized. One of the components that I would like to sort of talk about also is the Sharia compliant component, which normally we tend to not talk a lot about. But I think in terms of compatibility to Sharia compliance, the fintech applications, this is something that is happening in Pakistan. This is something very unique also, that we are working on solutions that adhere to the principles, Islamic principles, while we are working on the financial inclusion component. But the fintechs essentially are deploying big data analytics. They are deploying cloud computing, Internet of Things, blockchain, AI. So all these elements are already present. They may not necessarily be present to the extent that we want them to be. Our fintechs are still struggling because you see there is a space, but the funding is one of the areas that I would like to talk about over here as well. What happens is that when we speak about are they using technology? Yes, they are using technology, and some of them are using more than others. But within this landscape, you have most of the work relating to these elements on financial inclusion being taken up by banks, by telecoms. So where is the funding going for all these? So all those smaller, innovative fintechs, which have a lot to offer in terms of capacity, may not be getting even the funding for these things. So these technological enablers are already there, but the funding for all those innovative fintechs may not necessarily be there. So you also have some, for example, going into crowdfunding. I think there is P2P lending as well. So both of these are already being used. But then are we also looking at other options? Because the financial landscape requires multiple areas in which you need to work at the same time. So while you have the big players, you have the small players attempting to get some kind of seed money, some kind of funding. You have innovators who are coming up with incubations. You have like InsurTech, for example, is another area that, insurance, InsurTech essentially is insurance, and that component. So there is a lot happening, but if we can say that everything is coming together, it's not, because we at the government level require to have more of a aligned strategy which really helps and supports the whole ecosystem. That is missing. So everybody is struggling on their own. It's like literally you're thrown into the ocean. Some struggle better, others don't. Some land on a big boat, others drown. So this is the challenge that we have. So there is certainly a lot of technology being utilized, but then it's here, there, and everywhere. It's not a structured thing.
You've raised a very valid and, might I add, a sort of sensitive point, which is in relation to funding. I think globally we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in funding, and particularly in Pakistan. And I think somebody also mentioned this. Our sort of political climate also has an impact on the progress of financial landscape in Pakistan. Uh, would somebody like to add anything to what Alia mentioned, or to answer my question generally? Mushtaq, Farhan, Faraz.
So, sorry. So, I was having some connectivity issue. So first of all, we are heavily dependent on technology, everyone. So, so I agree with Alia that nowadays funding is an issue for startups and fintechs. But if you look at the name, the fintech, so technology is the essential part in their proposition. Uh, I believe that technology is there, the implementation of the technology is also there, and fintech cannot operate without technology. That's given. But the main thing which I see missing in most of the fintechs is the right use case, the use of right use case, and addressing the needs of a common person, because uh, many fintechs have come up and they have addressed the already targeted area or already addressed market, and every most of the fintechs, they are trying to get into the same space, make bill payments, and do merchant payments, some sort of merchant payments. In fact, that's not totally successful. They are not totally successful in the merchant payments till now, and everyone is rushing towards already tapped merchants or already tapped market. So I feel that like there are different use cases which fintechs should adopt or should look what's the customer need, and then apply the technology uh, for those use cases. And in many cases, in many situations, if your use cases are addressing the needs of the market, then you will be in a better position to convince the investors and sponsors, and show them the actual ROI that that may come after 2 3 years, but it's there because like cash on delivery, it's a big market. And now some of the fintechs or e-commerce players, they have started looking towards reducing cash on delivery, and they are now getting into utilizing the technology of soft POS, in which you have your POS device, not device, POS within your phone, and your rider or a courier company person, he can come and he can collect the payment using cards or QR codes like RAS, P2M QR codes. So this is one of the area where technology, this use case has to be triggered. But I would say for fintechs that they have to utilize the technology for the right use cases, not just just for the run of the mill use cases.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think this sort of brings me to my third question and something I mentioned, the political climate. So my next question is, what role do regulatory bodies play in fostering or hindering fintech innovation in Pakistan? I think that's so. I have the question in two parts, but that is the first part. And I think by regulatory bodies, we can perhaps also discuss generally the economic or political climate. So, if anyone would like to address this question.
Mm. Yeah.
Can I take this question? Sorry, Alia, go ahead.
All right, no, go ahead. It's fine.
Please.
Um, I think we'll probably be talking of the same thing, but
See.
I was being too blunt. I think so I'm rethinking on my responses. I need to be a little bit more, you know, appropriate, I would say. So for now, for this one, I would just say the regulatory bodies, of course, have a huge role. The first one, of course, is State Bank of Pakistan. I do think that State Bank, in terms of its governance structures, is actually doing a very good job. I see that I think back in 2022 they had come up with a licensing and regulatory framework also for digital banks that outlined the process that had to be taken up for the digital banks. That already I think five. Five licenses were issued, and I think that five more have been issued, if I'm not mistaken. So, or they are going to. So that component actually really helps. I do think that the regulator has one of the key roles in creating the ecosystem and steering it in the right direction. The policies that we follow essentially change the pattern of behavior of the users. And that's why the policy formulation and the regulatory frameworks are some of the most important elements which can create any kind of advancement, the economic advancement that we may require. I think from that perspective, State Bank does a very good job. The second one, of course, is the Security and Exchange Commission of Pakistan. The SECB does regulate the provision of fintech products and services. And yet, I think they probably require a little bit more rigorous eye on these. There is, I think they did make a regulatory sandbox at some point in time, if I'm not mistaken. That's the second part. And then, of course, you have the whole area of compliance that needs to be looked at by both of them. Beyond that, I think the Ministry of Finance does need to look at the policies and how these are structured to take fintech forward, essentially, and connect it globally. Because the challenge that I see sitting in UK is that we are not very well connected. We have a lot of space to grow in that area, and we are not visible. And if you're not visible, you're not on the table. You really are just not there. So you're losing out on major opportunities currently every day, literally, as we speak.
No, I just to sort of please feel free to be blunt because I think this is something that all of us are feeling. And you mentioned that if we're not visible, we're losing out on opportunities. I mean, that's one point, being visible. The other aspect is having a negative perception globally, and that's a challenge we faced as a country because of some sort of macro level events that have happened. So I agree with you, and I think this forum, this platform is one where we can speak our hearts out because we need to first acknowledge what challenges we're going through and then have a meaningful discussion on how we can tackle them. So thank you for your very candid
I'll just add here. I'll just add
comment.
one small thing. There is no
Farhan,
negative
Mushtaq, Faraz,
perspective.
if you would like to add.
Sorry, can I just
Sorry,
add?
I need to.
Sure, Alia, please. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
so I don't think there is a negative perspective or perception about us outside Pakistan. It's a very level playing field. If we are not there, we are not playing, we are not playing. It's got nothing to do with our political scenarios.
I agree
Okay, that's good to
on
know.
this. Yeah, I would like to add a few cents to Alia's comments, and then so from the regulator point of view, for fintechs, the State Bank is the main regulator. SECP also regulates some of the NBFIs and NBFCs. But for majorly for financial institutions and for fintechs, State Bank is the major regulator. And for last say 7 to 8 years, we have seen that State Bank has been very progressive, and they have launched many regulations like PSO, PSP, then EMIs, and then they will bank. Now they are now everyone is looking for open banking, which will add a lot of value to fintechs and other third-party service providers. So regulators is trying their best to facilitate and to progress and to ensure the financial inclusion. But the overall situation within Pakistan, like the economic situation or the political situation, and the most important thing is the tax evasion. Because if we pay tax and we don't get anything out of those taxes, so the industry or the main business community who are out there, who are the major who's the major target market for fintechs. So they are not actually ready to come on board and start and become part of the digital ecosystem. So I would say that we are implementing like the core of fintech, and we are doing the regulations and rules and regulations and providing policies and procedures. So it's in the paper, it's on the paper, on the table, but it's not on ground because the target market is not ready. So we should come up with such incentives or such policies and procedures which provide incentives to target markets, to merchants, to businesses for using digital payments. And on the other side, when fintechs uh, they want to get into the market, they want to start their operations. There are a lot of costs associated with those operations. And like, for example, if some fintech wants to open a wallet account, they have to do a KYC. For that, their customer acquisition has become very costly. You have to pay NADRA fees, then you have to pay CNIC verification fees, then you have to pay biometric fees. Then, if you have taken services from PMD for a mobile phone and and CNIC matching, so that's another cost. So there are a lot of variable costs that adds to a customer acquisition, and at the end of the day, that proposition becomes very expensive. So if we want to make it successful from the regulation, from the regulatory compliance and on ground perspective, we need to ensure that whatever is in the document is just a guideline, but how to achieve them, we have to facilitate all the fintechs. We have to provide different incentives in terms of like by reducing cost of essential items which is needed in the fintech space. So I believe that if we are able to make a healthy ecosystem for fintechs, then these progressive regulations will make sense. So this is my point of view on this question.
Um, Thank you. You've raised again valid points, and I agree that the government does subsidize certain sectors in Pakistan. So why not provide some sort of incentive to the fintech sector? And there have been some sort of developments and progress by the government on providing incentives, but we need more. Especially fintech is a sector where we see a lot of young blood coming in, a lot of entrepreneurs with who start on their own, and they need all the incentives they can get. So valid point raised. And just to mention, I think earlier you mentioned financial inclusion initially, and that traditional banks sort of marginalize certain segments of the population. But now we have, some players like Kist Bazaar, and we advised on their sort of arrangement with Bank al Fala. So Bank al Fala sort of invested equity in Kiss Bazaar, and Kiss Bazaar is buy now, pay later. We of course need more of such players in the country to tap and reach out to all segments in the population. Um, I think we've touched upon this topic a little bit, but what reforms would each of you uh, like to see implemented in Pakistan by regulatory bodies or the private sector to address the challenges which we've just discussed?
Okay, just to contribute, I completely agree with Faraz and Alia. On the other side, we are just working on the fintech, and we are just transforming and in middle of transforming, and we are implementing a quite good solution innovations in the fintech. But on the other side, we have to just educate the users as well. As a customer, I'm the on the receiving side as well. So I'm been implementing some one of the e-commerce sites, and we have been struggling that we are just trying to implement the gateway, but the customer is still not ready to just start using the like the Easy Pesa and do some payments on the Easy Pesa and the online banking. They still prefer the cash on delivery sites. So this is one of the things that we need to just educate our users as well. We have so many solutions we can just implement it, but if the implementation will be done once we have a complete cycle, like people start using these systems. So this is one thing that we need to be mentioned, that we have to just focus on to educate them as well, user as well. As you have already mentioned, the challenges that we have been right now, we are just facing, like fintech firms basically depend on the four different pillars, as Faraz and Alia has already mentioned, that the capital, if the investment is not being there, then the solution is not completed and it's not being scale up that to up to the certain up to the Pakistan level, and this demand is there. But again, we most of the software houses, I know them that they are just working on it, and but they are just still struggling to just implement the policies. They are still facing to just comply in their government regulatories. So this is one of the challenges that they are also facing in this area. So I said that I think that the fintech innovations and systems in implementing, if the government is allow them to just do the ease of doing work, like ease of doing business kind of things, that they have to just work on it, and the system can easily implement it. If we can see on the other side, most of the, like we have some example of India as well. So as we said, that most of the people start using their mobile wallets, and they can easily doing some transaction. They are not using cash. They are just trying to reduce the cash as much as possible. But we are still not still in the phase of adopting these kind of solutions. So I think that the government need to just understand, and they can just give them ease to doing some business to the vendors as well.
May I add on this a
So
little? Okay, Faraz, you go
Yes,
ahead.
please.
yeah, okay, thank you. So so rightly said, uh, there are a lot of issues. We have been discussing these issues, but on the other side, if we see, there are uh, not a lot of fintechs, but some fintechs who have started doing really well, like NeaPay. Then there is Sada Pay. Then there is another company, PayFast. So they are in the early stages, but they are doing really good. They have started doing really good. They have wallets in millions now, and their cards, Visa or Mastercard, they are into millions. But this is a very small number if it's compared to our population. But at least they are putting their efforts to digitize the payment, the collection of payments, and to enable merchants to and to enable and digitize merchants to accept payments digitally. So that's happening, and if what we have discussed, the issues that we have discussed, if these are somewhat resolved by the authorities, relevant authorities, and if we have sufficient funding, and if we have ease of doing business and required incentives for merchants and fintechs, I believe we have great potential, because like 80% of the market is still untapped. If you go to interior or remote areas, right now you are unable to find network there. So this is one of the challenge. If someone wants to access some e-commerce site and wants to pay digitally, or someone wants to utilize banking services or fintech services, and they don't have the network, or they don't have maybe the penetration of the mobile phone is there, but network is, if network is not there. So this, we need to have one of the uh, major issue if you talk about masses. So is the infrastructure. You need to have proper infrastructure for the success of fintechs and digital payments, and for all such activities. So I feel this is one of the areas that needs to be addressed.
I would just add one component to it, to just sort of an overall ecosystem perspective that I have. I think from Pakistan perspective, we need to see a balance in the innovations and regulations. And I think right now that having the right balance between these two elements may be something which is missing, because sometimes the rules can be very stringent, which essentially inhibit the growth of fintechs. And also, sometimes overly permissive policies can really compromise on consumer protection and financial stability also. So we do need very clear guidelines from the regulators and regulating bodies for the startups, which address their challenges on licensing, which address their compliance issues. It also addresses consumer rights. And then, of course, going onwards to the financial inclusion component, where the targeting of the unbanked population becomes one of the key areas that needs to be sort of focused on.
Again, very valid point, Faraz, and something I'm struggling with today, lack of basic infrastructure. So while everybody might have a mobile phone in their hands, they will not have a stable internet connection or no connection at all. And you were sort of referring to rural areas. I'm currently in an urban area in Karachi, the largest city of Pakistan, and just out of the blue, I'm facing problems with my internet connection. So this is something that I agree. We need to address our basic challenges first, and then, as Alia mentioned, move on to bigger hurdles. But we've sort of, each of us mentioned some success stories in Pakistan in this sector. I mentioned Kiss Bazaar. Faraz, you mentioned Naya Pay, Sada Pay. Is there any, because just on a positive note, is there any other example of a successful fintech initiative which any of you would like to mention before I move on to my next question?
I would say NeaPay is doing really good. In fact, I'm the founding member of NeaPay, so my best wishes to it will always be with NeaPay. Uh, but having said this, NeaPay is doing a fabulous job. They have recently done one more thing. Just on a positive side, they have done the partnership with Alipay, and now if you go to China, you can scan QR code using NeaPay. you see a Pakistani brand going abroad, and everyone, like in China, everyone is seeing that there is a Pakistani brand, fintech brand. It's coming to China, and you can go, you can scan the QR code using NeaPay app, and you can pay the payments using NeaPay app, and there is an auto conversion. Like you have rupees, you have to pay in their currency, so it's automatically converting. So ease of use is there. So I feel proud that a Pakistani brand is not penetrating locally, but they are also now representing Pakistan globally. So this is uh, one of the examples that I see that's worth mentioning.
I would add Abhi. I think Abhi has done
Yes.
tremendous work as
Yes.
well. I think they picked up how much Sukuk bonds? Was it like 2 billion? So that in itself was huge. They have also been, I think, recognized by World Economic Forum as technology pioneers. So I think Abhi and their expansion, global footprint increasing, that also is a very good. And obviously you have all those, Sada Pay, and you have multiple actually. But there are some are very small, some are still sort of struggling to get there. But Kist Pay is doing well. That has already gone global. Sada Pay also, it also enables freelancers. I think that's a very good area that is important also. And I think it's connected with Google Pay and Apple Pay and all that. So it works as well.
Absolutely. So, some very good success stories for us to be proud of, and for other players and upcoming sort of players in this sector to look up to, and maybe to even surpass them. My next question is somewhat related. How are traditional banks in Pakistan adapting to the rise of fintech? That's the first part. And I think earlier it was you who mentioned initially that it was actually traditional banks who stepped in this sector because they have, for lack of a better word, deeper pockets. They have the funding and they have the resources to tap into this sector. But what is your view? What is each of you? What is your view on this?
So I think, just, am I allowed to speak first?
Please,
First.
please.
Okay. So I think there has been a shift in terms of how the banks have been connecting with the fintech ecosystem. Initially, as you see, like Easy Pesa is not really coming from the banking, commercial banking, but it came from telecom. Now
Yeah.
that was the largest, but then you have multiple things coming in. What has happened, I think, over the years is that the banks recognize and realize the value of fintechs, and because of that, most of the banks in Pakistan now have as partners. So this is something which is extremely good actually, as partners some of these smaller fintechs which have done a lot of work. So it's essentially for the banks, the win-win situation is that it creates a plug-and-play situation for them. For the fintechs, it provides them a platform which is larger than they can escalate to immediately. So these collaborations is something that has recently happened, and that is something that helps both the industries. The commercial banks understand that they are large, and large organizations are not as agile as smaller fintechs which are coming up. And for the purpose, it's really important that those specializations which are coming in from the fintech are adapted very quickly by the banks. So the banks are benefiting from it, and the fintechs are benefiting from it as well. So I think this model is working really, really well. This just needs to be more structured. It needs to be more proactive. Some of the banks are still very sort of risk averse, and they are still hesitant to go forward with these upcoming fintechs. However, the banks can also help the fintechs because the compliance frameworks within banks can support the fintechs also. It links to what I was talking about earlier. So I see a very positive space over there in terms of growth of both the sectors. And
Again,
obviously, it is
you've
very
made
strong. Yeah.
Yes. Again, very valid observation that banks in Pakistan are traditionally risk averse and cautious, and we do understand it's because State Bank is a very diligent regulator, and but on a personal level, my own bank. So normally I would call the call center and they would guide me. This year, a few weeks ago, when I called them, they said, "Oh, we won't. Our policy, internal policy, is no longer to provide these services on the phone." Because we want to push our customers to use either mobile app or online banking, which is good. I mean, not everybody can do this because sort of the people who use banking services come from rural areas, urban areas, their connectivity issues. Some might not be very good at using mobile apps, but it's a shift we're seeing the digital banking sector, and we've our fourth guest have Jamil Saab. You've just joined us, so if you could just please introduce yourself quickly for all of us.
Assalamu alaikum. By profession, I'm an engineer and presently working in
Um,
SSGCL as
I'm
just
unable to hear Jamil Saab. Can the rest of you hear him?
Yes, we are unable to hear.
We can hear, but it's a very low voice. Can you please speak?
Is it okay
Jamil
now?
Saab, maybe you
I think
could,
the volume is low.
It's
yeah.
better. It's
Is it
better.
okay now?
Or maybe Jamil Saab, you could disconnect and
Look,
rejoin.
Okay, I will try that again.
Yeah, your voice is quite faint, so if you could please rejoin, that would be very helpful. Thank you. But Faraz or Farhan, your thoughts on our traditional banks adapting to the rise of fintech? Anything to add?
Just 2 minutes for us, please. Okay, so this is very valid point from the earlier raised that we have to have some partnership with the banks and the regulatory bodies along with the fintech. That would be helped a lot. Basically, the banks has already been regularized from the governing bodies, and they can just easily connect the fintechs. And you have already rightly said that most of the banks is still start using this thing, and they introduce their different apps, and they are just start introducing their different app services as well. So this is very much important that each bank have to just connect with the fintech and then support the fintech applications, and they can easily penetrate and they can just on a larger scale to the for the ease of the users as well.
So Faraz, do you see any
so
partnerships or collaborations between banks and fintech startups? I've seen
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah,
Bank
absolutely.
invested in Kiss Bazaar, which we advised on as lawyers.
So yeah, so I was at NEAPE. Just to give the, I haven't introduced myself. So I'm the you may say co-founder or founding member of NEAPE, and then I was heading Nifty Pay. Now I'm working for a Saudi fintech from Pakistan. So when at NEAPE we partnered with around 10 banks, and then and at Nifty Pay, our main business model revolves around the account-based payments. So our payment gateway has the accounts of different banks. So all of those banks were our partner at Nifty Pay. So right now, what's happening that initially when this fintech world came, uh, there was a lot of resistance from the bank side because they saw it as their rivals. But finally, with the efforts of state banks, with growing market, with more knowledge and understanding, banks also realize that we cannot work without them, because in banks DNA it's not very common to be on the ground and get 2 million merchants, to onboard 2 million merchants and make them accept digital payments. So it's not possible for banks to do it alone. Otherwise, they would have done it. So fintechs or companies like who are in the market like Kino, like NeaPay, SadaPay, PayFast, Nifty Pay, and there are a lot of names who are doing good job in the market. Uh, so banks realize that we need to partner with them. We need to utilize their technology, their approach, their speed, agility. So banks started partnering with them, and along with partnering with them, what and banks also they have started upgrading themselves. They started hiring people who can convert them from a typical banker approach to more fintechish approach, or make a fintech sort of environment within that digital banking department or section. So we see now a lot of banking apps upgrading to latest technologies, latest frameworks, and providing customers with some near to what fintechs are providing. Like right now, a lot of banks have started allowing customers to open instant bank accounts. Previously, you have to go to a bank branch and open bank account, but now some of the banks are providing you can from their app you can open a bank account instantly. Then for credit card and debit card, some of the banks have enabled that within their app you can order your debit and credit card from the app and get them within a couple of days or within a week's time. So progress is there, partnerships are there. It's still a long way to go because the market has to be receptive, uh, due to whatever we have discussed so far in last 1 hour. So that's a challenge which banks and fintechs both are facing. In fact, I know Jamil Saab. I got to know Jamil Saab as my customer, as my partner at Nifty. Now we are very good friends. And you see, an organization like SSGC, they have really progressed really well in the digital space. Now they have different payment mechanism within their within the platform, within their technology, within their app. So that's good to see. And at the end of the day, this is convenience for the fintech, for the customer.
Thank you, Jamil Saab. We're sort of nearing the end of our talk, but we were just discussing how digital banks have adapted to the rise of fintech in Pakistan and the partnerships and collaborations which we've been seeing. And since you missed some of our earlier questions, as you know, the topic of our today's discussion is transforming Pakistan's financial landscape, fintech innovations. Is there anything you would like to add generally?
Yes. First of all, my apologies that I got not a lot delayed. So extremely sorry for that. And I would like to add here that fintech, as we see that is the future of technology and finance both. And if we want to increase the footprints of technology in finance, so banking need to consolidate or make a joint venture, make a consortium so that one window can serve multiple means customers. For instance, if I say I'm not sure whether was there any discussion on KYC. Did we talk anything about the eKYC? eKYC, when we see that, I can see that for fintech, eKYC is one of the initiatives which can very rapidly increase the footprint. And what we can do is that we can make a single platform where one biometric is done and that is being shared with all the banks. Any bank who wants to get on board any of his customers, he can simply use that biometric and rest of the information to register that customer in his bank, rather than doing biometric in each and every bank separately. And as we see here in Pakistan, that in biometrics, we see a lot of banks are offering online biometrics, but that is a pain. It is really hard to get those biometrics done through your handheld devices. You ultimately need to visit the branches and do your biometrics there. So this is one thing which I would like to suggest if it is not being discussed before. And another initiative which I can see is banking should engage the technical partners and introduce those digital onboarding system so that people can easily access those means digital accounts. And on top of that, all the people who are living in far-flung areas, in remote areas, additional benefits should be extended to them, and by reducing the cost of transaction, by minimizing, or for remote areas where technology we have technology constraints, internet is not that speedy, you don't have those handheld device, so we need to extend those services in those areas so that they are means being onboarded on the system. Because what we are seeing and observing is that in major cities we have fintech and with a very good footprint, but in remote areas we cannot see any coverage. So for that, I think special initiatives need to be taken by the government, from the technology companies, operators who are already working there. So that will, to me, it seems that that will bring more people on board in fintech.
Can I add something here onto this?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So on the digital onboarding, I think it's already there, and there are frameworks which have been in place put in place by the state bank. I can think of Assam digital account, for example, or digital remittance account offhand. Then there are banks who are already doing digital onboarding with tech partners, and these are multiple banks, so not just one. Offhand, I can think of Codebase Technologies was working, I think, with DIB on Roshan digital accounts. I think multiple banks have these technology plugins from fintechs. The second aspect of the suggestion that Jamil Saab suggested on uh, biometrics, they may have a challenge because we need to be very cognizant of data protection and rights of citizens uh, from access point of view or for any of these areas. And I think that is something that we tend to sort of not really look at in detail. Certainly, it can be done if there is consent, and express consent every time is taken, because any kind of data which is shared at a wider platform also has the risk of being leaked, which has happened already in Pakistan, as we know. So there are concerns relating to data security which need to be first looked at before any of these elements can be put in place. Thank you.
May I please add something here?
Yes, please.
Yes, very well suggested by Madam Alia. That is very true, because there may be some litigation issues that why my data is shared with the other bank. So what we can do is that the government can means form some sort of regulator which has the centralized data. And in the form of Nadra, we already have an entity which has a lot of very accurate data of most of the people. So there can be some API integration with Nadra, and instead of going to various banks, anybody wants to open his account, they can use the that API and call those biometrics and rest of the details from Nadra. That will in fact facilitate the users, and Nadra's footprint is almost in each and every area of Pakistan, whether it's a remote area, it's within the cities or wherever, but that has to be regulated through some body, and after those due approvals they can do that. That will, in my opinion, will facilitate a lot. For instance, if now I have three accounts, I have to go to three banks to do three biometrics. I want to change the address, I have to individually go to those banks. So rather than going to each and every bank, that authority can maintain the central data, and through that central data, our accounts can be operated. Yes, as madam said, that with the consent of means user, and definitely the banks will have some arrangements with Nadra or any authority which is formulated, so that they can means allow them to enable, disable, or whatever they want to do, they can do. At present, if we see, banks are just using another application for the verification. Whether I have applied for the account, is the CNIC number valid for me or not? They are only using for validation, nothing else. However, they can use for the biometric as well.
There are regulatory concerns on that, and there are major cybersecurity concerns on this. That's why it's not done by banks. And it will create further challenges if it's a slippery slope. Access to all your bank information or all your bank accounts and your money through Nadra can also be possible. Hacking can be possible. So these are very major concerns. So that's why any kind of authority cannot be given that kind of access. That's how I perceive it also.
I think we need another session on what we've just discussed. In fact, I had a few more questions, but we've unfortunately run out of time. We're over the 1 hour mark. So thank you everybody for joining today. And we do need another session. As I said, I have a huge list of pending questions, which hopefully CxO Global Forum will arrange another webinar on this topic with all of you, and we'll address it then. So thank you again for joining, taking out the time today, and for joining this session. Very pertinent
Thank
topic,
you. Thank you.
very relevant topic. I hope this will be useful to everybody who listens. Thank you. Have a good day and have a good weekend.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for
Thank you,
listening
everyone.
also.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye
Have a
bye.
good day, everyone. Bye.
Assalamualaikum Faraz bhai.